All right, let's jump right in today. We're doing a deep dive into Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
Oh, a classic.
It is. We're going to be looking at some excerpts from the audiobook on YouTube by Red Frost Motivation. And this is some ancient wisdom, but, it's still so relevant today, even in, like, our modern world.
Yeah. It's amazing how the art of war, it's not just about armies battling it out. I mean,
Right.
it's really applicable to so many things. Like you see it in business and politics, even just dealing with people on a personal level.
It's all about strategy. It
But
really is.
yeah.
So right off the bat, Sun Tzu doesn't mess around. He's like war.
Yeah.
It's a matter of life and death for a state. Like he just puts it right out there.
Jake to the point.
He does. And then he goes on to talk about these 5 key factors that you've got to consider in warfare.
Oh.
And they are moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and then method and discipline.
He's really setting the stage.
He is.
It's like he's saying, hey, if you want to understand conflict, here's what you need to consider.
Yeah. And I was really curious about that moral law thing.
Yeah.
I was like, what exactly does that even mean? It's a little...
It sounds kind of vague, right?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it's kind of about the leader's ability to get everyone on the same page,
Okay.
to create that unity where people are so loyal, they'll follow him no matter what, regardless of their lives, undismayed by any danger, he says.
Wow.
It's powerful stuff. Imagine a company where the employees believe in the CEO's vision so much that they're ready to tackle any challenge head on. That's the kind of power we're talking about.
So it's about way more than just barking orders.
Absolutely.
It's about building that deep trust and having a shared goal, a shared purpose.
You got it. And remember, that moral law thing, that's just one of the 5 factors he lays out.
Right.
He goes on to talk about 7 considerations for predicting victory. And they're all about comparing your side to the enemy's. Like, for example, he says, you got to look at consistency in rewards and punishments. You know which army is more reliable in how they hand those out. That can tell you a lot about their strength and discipline.
It's like he breaks down these big, complex ideas into these practical, measurable things.
Yeah, he's all about taking emotion out of it and looking at the situation objectively. That's what makes him such a brilliant strategist. And that kind of leads us to another key principle he talks about: minimizing losses and achieving victory quickly. He's not a fan of dragging things out.
Which makes me think about that foraging on the enemy idea.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
When I first heard that, I thought it was just about being resourceful,
Huh.
But it seems like there's a whole strategic layer to it.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. It's not just about taking what you can get. It's about weakening your opponent at the same time.
So it's like a double whammy.
Exactly. You take away their resources, and it puts a strain on their ability to fight. Sun Tzu, he really emphasizes how this approach, it's like less strain on your own resources, and it's a higher impact on the enemy's strength.
So you're not just surviving, you're actually getting ahead in the process.
Right. And this strategic way of thinking, it leads right into another key concept that Sun Tzu calls attack by stratagem. That's all about breaking the enemy's resistance without even having to fight them directly.
So more like a mental game.
You could say that. He gives some pretty interesting examples, like pretending you're weak when you're actually ready to attack, or acting disorganized to make your enemy overconfident.
Oh.
Yeah, it's about using deception and psychology to your advantage.
It's amazing how these tactics are still relevant today,
Yeah.
You see them all the time in business, in politics, even just in our everyday lives.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like he had this deep understanding of human nature that still holds true today.
Absolutely. He was way ahead of his time.
He really was.
And that understanding of human nature, it goes hand in hand with one of his most famous quotes. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
Such a powerful statement. But I think sometimes people forget about that know yourself part.
It's easy to get caught up in analyzing your competition,
Right.
but Sun Tzu knew that self-awareness is just as important.
You've got to know your own strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. You got to know your blind spots, your tendencies, what makes you tick. That's how you make smart decisions, based on a clear understanding of what you're capable of.
So it's all about being strategic, even with yourself.
Exactly. And Sun Tzu, he warns against what he calls the common herd's mistake.
What's that?
It's only recognizing victory when it's already obvious. Like, anyone can see it at that point. But the true master, he sees the potential for victory way before anyone else.
So you got to be able to spot the opportunity before it's staring everyone in the face.
Right. And according to Sun Tzu, the real master, they achieve victory effortlessly, No unnecessary risks, no mistakes. It's not about brute force, it's about calculated action.
So there's this idea of energy, right?
Oh.
And choosing the right moment to act.
Oh, yeah. He talks about that. He compares a conquering force to a bursting dam, all that raw power and momentum.
I could just picture that.
But then he contrasts that raw energy with what he calls decision, which he compares to a falcon strike. Sharp, precise, perfectly timed.
So you need both.
Exactly. It's not enough to just have power. You have to know when and how to use it. It's like, imagine you're surfing.
Okay.
You need the power of the wave, but you also need the skill to ride it.
That's a great analogy.
It is. And this whole idea, it ties into what Sun Tzu says about exploiting weaknesses and creating strengths. Waiting for your opponent to slip up, to make a mistake,
Right.
and then, bam, you hit them where they're vulnerable.
So you're not just reacting, you're strategically setting things up.
Precisely. It's about choosing your battles carefully, attacking undefended positions, making the enemy come to you. Like, he uses this image of a stone rolling downhill. It's an unstoppable force meeting an inevitable path.
You're using the situation to your advantage, not fighting against it.
Exactly. And that leads us to another big idea in The Art of War. Adaptability. Sun Tzu, he keeps saying that rigid plans, they usually fail because things are always changing.
It's like life, right?
Yeah.
Nothing ever goes exactly according to plan.
You got it. And so he compares a skilled general to water, always finding its path, flowing around obstacles. In fact, he actually says, military tactics are like unto water. Avoid what is strong, strike at what is weak.
I love that. It's so simple, but so profound. It's about being flexible, being able to adjust your strategy on the fly.
Absolutely. Adaptability is essential no matter what you're doing, whether you're leading an army, running a business, or just navigating your everyday life.
And, speaking of navigating complex situations,
Mm-hmm.
Sun Tzu doesn't just talk about grand strategy. He actually gives some really specific advice on managing soldiers.
Oh, yeah. He gets into the nitty-gritty of leadership.
He does. And it's interesting because he seems to be saying that you need a balance between treating people humanely and having iron discipline.
It's a tricky balance.
It is. It's like, how do you motivate and control your team without alienating them?
It's a challenge for any leader.
It really is. You need to create an environment where people feel both respected and accountable.
That's the sweet spot. Not too lenient, not too authoritarian. And speaking of intrigue, Sun Tzu also talks about the use of spies.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is where things get really interesting. He outlined these 5 types of spies.
5 types.
Yeah. And the one that really stood out to me was the converted spy,
What's that?
turning the enemy's own agents against them. I mean, talk about next-level espionage.
That's playing the game on a whole other level.
It is. It just highlights how important intelligence gathering is, not just in war, but in anything where you've got competition. If you know what your opponent is thinking, what they're planning, you've got a huge advantage.
It's like having insider information. It can make all the difference.
It really can. It's amazing how much we've covered already, and we're just scratching the surface of the art of war.
There's so much to unpack.
There really is.
From the 5 key factors in warfare to the power of deception and adaptability and intelligence gathering.
Yeah, Sun Tzu covers it all. So as we kind of wrap up this first part, what are some of the big takeaways, the things you think our listeners should really remember?
There's so much to choose from, but one thing that really sticks with me is how Sun Tzu emphasizes thinking ahead. He wants us to anticipate our opponent's moves, to counter them before they even happen.
Almost like you're playing chess, thinking several moves ahead.
Exactly. And he even talks about this idea of divine manipulation of the threads, like you're weaving a tapestry of events, shaping the outcome through your actions or even your inaction.
It's about seeing the bigger picture, understanding how everything is connected.
Yes. And then using that knowledge to your advantage. What's fascinating is how he combines these strategic insights with a deep understanding of human psychology.
Right. He doesn't advocate for winning at all costs. He emphasizes minimizing losses.
Right. He wants you to achieve victory with as little conflict as possible.
Which is such a powerful message, especially in today's world where things can feel so chaotic.
He's not glorifying violence. He's seeing it as a last resort. Instead, he wants us to master the art of strategy so we can create a more peaceful outcome.
This has really given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
And, for our listeners out there, I hope this has sparked your curiosity to explore the art of war for yourself. I mean, there's so much wisdom packed into that book, whether you're facing a big decision at work or navigating a tough relationship or just trying to better understand the dynamics of conflict.
As you dive deeper into Sun Tzu's teachings, ask yourself, How much control do we really have over the things that happen in our lives? And how can we use strategy, whether through action or even inaction, to influence those events? That's the real power of the art of war.
It makes you think differently about conflict, about competition, even about your own place in the world.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a really thought-provoking question to leave our listeners with.
I hope it gets them thinking.
I think it will. This has been a really fascinating exploration of Sun Tzu's mind, a real deep dive into the depths of the art of war.
It's been a pleasure.
It has. We'll be back for part 2 soon, so stay tuned.
Can't wait.
All right, until next time, take care.
See ya. Bye. It really is. And that understanding of human nature, that leads right into one of his most famous quotes. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Know your enemy, know yourself.
That's the one. But you know what I think people often forget about, that know yourself part?
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in sizing up the competition.
Exactly. But Sun Tzu, he knew that self-awareness is just as crucial.
So you got to know what you're good at, what you're not so good at.
You got it. Your blind spots, your tendencies, your whole operating system. You got to know yourself inside and out. That's how you make those strategic decisions, based on a solid understanding of what you bring to the table.
So it's like being strategic with yourself.
Exactly. And Sun Tzu, he warns against what he calls the common herd's mistake, only recognizing victory when it's already a done deal. Anybody can see it at that point.
Yeah.
But the true master, he sees that potential for victory way before anyone else.
It's like spotting the opportunity before it's even really an opportunity.
You got it. And according to Sun Tzu, the real master, they achieve victory without breaking a sweat, No unnecessary risks, no slip-ups. It's not about brute force. It's about precision. It's about knowing exactly what you're doing.
It's like a carefully calculated plan.
Exactly.
So there's that whole idea of energy, right? Like choosing the right moment to make your move.
Oh, yeah. He talks about that. He compares a conquering force to a bursting dam.
Oh, well.
Yeah, all that raw power and momentum.
Oh, yeah.
But then he contrasts that raw energy with decision, which he says is more like a falcon strike. Sharp, precise, perfect timing.
So you need both, right? Like the power and the timing.
Exactly. It's not enough to just have power. You gotta know how to use it, when to unleash it. It's kind of like, imagine you're surfing. You need the power of the wave, but you also need the skill to ride it, to stay on top of it.
Well, I like that. That's a good analogy.
And this whole idea, it feeds right into what Sun Tzu says about exploiting weaknesses and creating strengths. Waiting for your opponent to make a mistake, to leave an opening, and then bam, you hit them where they're vulnerable.
Just react here, like setting them up.
That's right. It's about choosing your battles carefully, attacking undefended positions, making the enemy come to you. He uses this image of a stone rolling downhill. It's unstoppable force, inevitable path.
It's like you're not fighting against the current. You're using it to your advantage.
That's the idea. And that takes us to another big theme in the art of war, adaptability. Sun Tzu, he emphasizes over and over that rigid plans, they often backfire because things are always in flux.
Well, yeah, life never goes exactly according to plan, right?
Right. And so he compares a skilled general to water, always finding its path, always flowing around obstacles. In fact, he says, military tactics are like unto water. Avoid what is strong, strike at what is weak.
I love that line. It's so simple, but it really gets to the heart of it. It's about being flexible. Being able to change your game plan when you need to.
That's what adaptability is all about. And it's essential no matter what you're doing, leading an army, running a business, just navigating everyday life.
Yeah.
You got to be able to adapt.
So Sun Tzu, he doesn't just talk about big picture strategy, right? He actually gets into the specifics of how to manage your people.
Oh, yeah. He gets down to the nitty-gritty of leadership.
He does. And what's interesting is he seems to be saying that you got to find a balance between treating people with respect and dignity and also having iron discipline. Tough, but fair.
It's definitely a balancing act. How do you motivate people, keep them in line, but also, make sure they feel valued?
It's that sweet spot, right? Not too soft, not too hard.
Exactly. You got to create that environment where people feel both respected and accountable. And talking about keeping things interesting, Sun Tzu, he also gets into the use of spies.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is where it gets juicy. He lays out these 5 types of spies. 5 types, yeah. And the one that really blew my mind was what he called the converted spy.
What's a converted spy?
Turning the enemy's own agents against them.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about next-level espionage.
That's some serious spycraft.
Yeah, it really is. It just goes to show you how important intelligence gathering is. I mean, not just in war, but in any situation where there's competition, if you know what your opponent's thinking, what they're planning, you've got a serious leg up.
It's like having eyes and ears everywhere.
Exactly. It's incredible we've covered so much already, and we're really just scratching the surface of the art of war.
There's just so much depth to it.
There really is. From the 5 key factors in warfare to the power of deception and adaptability and intelligence gathering, Sun Tzu really covers it all. So as we kind of wrap up this second part, what are some of the big takeaways, the things you think our listeners should really hold on to?
There's so much to choose from, but I think one of the most important things is that Sun Tzu emphasizes thinking ahead. He wants us to anticipate our opponent's moves, counter them before they even happen.
It's like that chess analogy again, always thinking a few steps ahead.
Exactly. He even talks about this idea of divine manipulation of the threads, like you're, weaving this tapestry of events, shaping the outcome through your actions or even through your inaction.
So it's not just about what you do, it's about what you don't do as well.
Right. It's about understanding that everything is interconnected and then using that knowledge to, steer things in your favor. And what I find so fascinating is how he blends these strategic insights with this deep understanding of human psychology.
Yeah, he's not just about winning at all costs.
No, he's about minimizing losses, achieving victory with as little conflict as possible.
Which is such a powerful message, especially in the world today where things can feel so out of control.
Yeah, he doesn't glorify violence. He sees it as a last resort. He'd rather us master the art of strategy and use that to create a more peaceful outcome.
He wants us to use our heads.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like he wants us to be those master puppeteers, pulling the strings, making things happen.
That's a great way to put it. And what's really cool is how he ties all this strategic thinking into a bigger philosophy about minimizing conflict,
Right.
He doesn't want us to go around picking fights all the time. He wants us to use strategy to achieve our goals with as little bloodshed as possible.
Which I think is such a relevant message for today,
Oh, absolutely.
when there's so much division and conflict in the world.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, hey, use your brains, not your brawn.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
We have.
We've talked about the 5 key factors in warfare, the power of deception, the importance of adaptability and intelligence gathering.
And so much more.
There's just so much packed into this book.
Yeah, it's amazing how much wisdom is in there.
It really is. So as we wrap things up, what do you think are the most important takeaways for our listeners? What should they really remember from all of this?
Well, if I had to choose, I'd say one of the biggest things is to remember that every situation is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Sun Tzu, he gives us these principles, these guidelines, but he also emphasizes that we need to be flexible, to adapt our approach based on the specific circumstances we're facing.
It's like he's giving us a toolkit, with all these different tools.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to figure out which tool to use when.
Exactly. And another thing to keep in mind is that strategy isn't just about winning at all costs. It's about achieving your goals in the most efficient and effective way possible. Sometimes that means taking a step back, reassessing the situation, maybe even choosing not to engage in a conflict at all.
So it's not about being aggressive all the time.
No, it's about being smart.
It's about choosing your battles wisely.
That's right. Sun Tzu, he was all about minimizing losses, achieving victory with as little bloodshed as possible. I think that's a lesson that's really relevant today more than ever.
I agree. So for our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive into the art of war is giving you some food for thought.
It's a book that can really change the way you think about the world.
I think so too. And, whether you're facing a tough decision at work or dealing with a difficult relationship or just trying to navigate the complexities of life.
There's something in the art of war for everyone.
There really is. So we encourage you to check it out for yourselves, explore its steps, and see what insights you can glean from this ancient master of strategy.
And as you read it, as you ponder its wisdom, ask yourself, how can I apply these principles to my own life? How can I use strategy to achieve my goals, to overcome challenges, to create a more fulfilling and meaningful existence?
Wow, those are some big questions.
But they're important ones.
They are. This has been a truly fascinating journey into the mind of Sun Tzu, a real deep dive into the timeless wisdom of the art of war.
It's been a pleasure sharing this with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this adventure. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving to be the best strategist you can be in all aspects of your lives.
Well said. Until next time.
See ya.